I'd like to welcome you to our first virtual Lunch and Learn Marketing Council workshop of 2022. I can't believe February is already here. We've already gotten through 1 month of the new year, and I'm looking forward to the programmatic stuff we're going to have this year for Marketing Council. We have our meeting today. We've got a session on February 9th with Lorraine Rinaldi. So if anyone is on this meeting today and you haven't registered for our, March 9th session, please do so right on the league's website. And I am looking to nail down an April Lunch and Learn virtual session on credit union marketing. So I think we're going to have a lot of great programs coming to you this year. And I'm optimistic we may even be able to get together in person this year. I know I think I said that last year at this time, but I'm really optimistic this year. So thank you all for joining the council again this year. And I love the collaboration between all of us. And it's a pleasure to work with each and every one of you. So this is a lunch and learn session. So please feel free to have your lunch while you're watching today's program. And of course, ask questions. We want to make sure you get the most out of today's session. We have a wonderful speaker and presenter here today. I'm gonna read Lewis's bio here momentarily, but please either ask questions through the chat, which I'll monitor throughout today's meeting. But take yourselves off mute, put yourselves on camera and ask questions, because again, we want to make sure that you are getting the most out of today's meeting and future sessions as well. So before I pass this off, I did not memorize your bio, so I'm going to just read it for everybody. Lewis, correct me if I'm wrong. Gudema, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Gudema.
Gudema. Louis Gudema is a fractional head of marketing and marketing strategist. His Bullseye marketing book was named one of the best marketing books of all time. He has 30 years of experience producing results for companies in many industries, from the Fortune 10 to venture-backed startups to nonprofits. He's spoken at many local, regional, and national events, and his writing has been seen on such sites as Harvard Business Review, Eco Consultancy, Target, and many others. He does his banking at a credit union, as he mentioned, in the Boston area, and lives in the greater Boston area. So without further ado, I'm gonna pass this on to you and welcome you to the first Marketing Council session of 2022. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Looks like a great turnout. So thank you all for joining us today to talk about marketing for credit unions. The reason this is important, many of you may suspect this or may know this, but the bottom line is that companies that market more grow faster. And this has been documented in many industries. I've done research on this in software, where the most aggressive companies grow 5 times faster than the least aggressive ones. There have been studies done in insurance, in professional services, in many, many industries, and specifically for credit unions as well. So Web Strategies does an ongoing survey of credit unions around how much they budget for marketing and how rapidly they grow. And this is specifically around digital marketing, not including traditional marketing, although in the last couple of years, almost all marketing has been digital. And they found that credit unions ideally spend on marketing about 11% of budget, or about 0.12% of assets, or $11 to $20 per member. It's interesting because you see in a lot of industries where about 10 to 12% of budget being spent on marketing is an optimal amount. And what they found from this, as I was saying just a moment ago, is there is a strong correlation between the amount of marketing dollars invested per member and membership growth. Now, you may not be spending 10 to 12% of your budget on marketing today. And that may seem like a real stretch for some of you. And you don't have to go out tomorrow if that's the case and suddenly, start throwing money around. Because what I'm going to talk about today is my Bullseye marketing approach, which is a framework for launching and scaling marketing programs in cost-effective and effective ways, and growing to that 10 to 12% over a couple years, and why you should be doing that, and where your money should be going. So there's 3 phases to the Bullseye. The first is to fully exploit your existing marketing asset. Any organization like a credit union that's been around even just a few years typically has marketing assets that are very valuable, but few are fully exploiting them. It's kind of like having money in a shoebox sitting under your bed rather than investing it wisely or putting it into a financial institution. And so in the first phase of Bullseye marketing, we talk about what marketing assets do you currently have, how can you take better advantage of them, and how can you produce quick results in just a few months, really for very little dollars, because you already own these. And part of the beauty of a lot of marketing today, especially digital marketing, is ridiculously inexpensive technology to exploit it. If people 25 years ago had said that we could do the things that we're doing today better for free or just a few dollars a month, no one would believe it. So you really do have great opportunities to inexpensively start to improve your marketing in just a few months with these existing marketing assets. In the second phase, you look to sell to customers who want to buy now. The reality is that probably 95 to 98% of the people who could be members and aren't are not really looking for a new financial institution today. They may be 3 months from now, 6 months, a year, 3 years, 5 years, but they're not looking right now. But the ones who are, we definitely want to be in front of. We definitely want to let them know about us and why we have a great offering, what we can do for them. So this is all about identifying those customers who want to buy now and getting in front of them. And then in the third phase of Bullseye marketing, you cast a wider net to that other 98% who really isn't looking to change now, but you want to develop what we call mental availability, so that when they are looking to change their financial institution, you are top of mind. And if you aren't, number one, you're certainly on a very short list of 2 or 3 institutions that they're going to consider at that time. And this is why this phase 3 is why insurance companies like Progressive or Geico advertise so much, even though, just like with a financial institution, people typically stay with their insurance company for over a decade. But when they're ready to change, those companies want to be top of mind. And that's the very valuable purpose of the third phase of Bullseye marketing. And in the long run, it will produce more business for you than the first 2 phases combined, but not in the first year or 2. And we'll be getting to that. So let's talk about these a little bit more deeply. The first one, again, is to fully exploit those existing marketing assets that you have. And certainly one of your marketing assets is your customers, your members. And you need to be customer focused. You need to understand what they want, why they want it, and how to better serve them if you aren't already. And all of us, can always do a better job at this. And it all starts with the most important skill in business and probably in life, which is listening. Having conversations with members to find out what they're really looking for, how you're doing, and how you can do better. And this is something that I've done for many companies. I've done dozens of interviews for a particular company. I've done hundreds of interviews over the years. And the CEO, invariably has been somewhere between surprised and shocked by what their customers say compared to what they thought their customers would say. Because most of the conversations that we have with customers and members are in a selling or servicing situation, not in a listening situation. So when you listen, when you have 30 to 45-minute conversations, which are only to listen to them and to ask them questions like, why did you join the credit union? How have we lived up to what you expected? How and how not? What do we do best? What do we do worst? How could we better serve you in the future? When you have these conversations, you invariably find out, surprising things. So for example, I was doing these with for one company, and just one of this was a B2B company that had a tech service, and they had a customer who, it was one of those situations where one customer was like 25 or 30% of their business, just a huge, huge part of their business. And when I talked to the guy and I said, are you happy, with the company? What could they do better? He said, no, we're not happy. And frankly, if things don't improve, we're probably going to be looking in a few months for a different vendor. This was a shock to the CEO. It was a shock to the company. They had no idea, even though it was a service company. And so they presumably would have close relationships and a lot of conversations with that customer. And these things happen in these conversations all the time. And since they're conversations, you want to go far beyond the initial questions. The initial questions are the prompt the initial answers, but depending on what they are, you need to follow up and you need to go in the direction that the member takes you and the customers take you. And one of the things that's very important to learn from these conversations are, what are your customers' emotional triggers? Because as much as we like to think of ourselves as rational beings, we make our decisions based on emotion. We choose, we decide based on emotion, and we justify with logic. And so understanding the emotional triggers, which are going to be certainly different for a credit union than they are for a commercial bank, than they are for other types of financial institutions, as I'll be talking about in a few minutes, is really critical to the kind of messaging and marketing that you're going to do. So one of the things about customer experience is how critical it is to the customer. Their experience with you is your brand. 98% of what they think about you is not your ads, your emails, your other communications, or things they see. It is their interactions with you. And PwC found, when they surveyed 15,000 consumers, that 1 in 3 customers will leave a brand that they love after just one bad experience. And 90% would completely abandon a company after 2 or 3 negative experiences. And it's well known that people talk about bad experiences much more and share bad experiences much more than they share good ones. So it's really, really critical as part of taking advantage of this marketing asset of members to have great customer experiences. So one of the ways that you do that is using customer experience journey maps. This is, and these come in a lot of different forms, and I'm going to show you a couple. If you go on the internet and search for customer experience journey maps, you'll see a lot of different forms that they take. But this is a nice one because it's kind of easy to understand, and it's for a person making a shipment. And the green touch points, there's about a dozen touch points when she tries to ship something. And the green ones are very positive. The yellow ones are so-so, and the red ones are a real problem. And obviously you want to get those red ones up into at least the yellow, if not the green, as quickly as possible. And the only way that you can do this, the only way you can learn what are the positive, neutral, and negative customer experiences and touch points, is once again by talking to your customers. So you have to involve customers in this customer journey mapping and improving of your customer experience too. It's really critical for maintaining members and growing. This is one example of a financial services customer journey map. And here you can see it looks very different, but what they've mapped out is how a person would go about getting a loan through research and planning, committing, receiving the service. And they've done a whole set of different issues that they researched with their customers around, what are the goals of each of these phases, what activities go into them, what are the touch points, and so forth. So this is very critical to growth. Companies that have great customer experiences typically grow much faster than those that do not. So why don't you put in the chat right now, what are some companies that you work with, either as a consumer or B2B, that you think have great customer experiences? Okay, Starbucks, Volkswagen, Charlie's Honda in Augusta, Ford Imprint, Pools, Chick-fil-A, Disney, Hannaford. Okay, these are great ones. Amazon always comes up. My Credit Union. All right, now put in to chat, what are some companies that have terrible customer experiences? Walmart. Okay, so Amazon was great. Walmart, not so much. The DMV, that pretty much everybody might. That's true in Massachusetts too. Frontier, US Cellular. Yeah, one of the things the Massachusetts DMV did to greatly improve its customer experience was to make much more digitally available. And I think that that's true with the financial organizations too. People want to do more and more online, especially during COVID. All right. Usually what comes up in the terrible customer experience is the cable company. So we didn't hear that from anyone, so maybe you have better cable companies than me. But developing great customer experiences is vital. All right, moving on from customers to another one of your marketing assets is your website. And you all have websites, and they all have messaging and conversion experiences. If you're not familiar with the term, in marketing, a conversion is when we get someone to come to our website and do what we want them to do, fill out that form, sign up for that event, download that white paper, whatever it may be. And again, this is one of those situations where you have a website. Making that website better and more effective with better conversion experiences can have a dramatic impact on how many leads you get and how many new members you're able to add. So this is the City of Boston Credit Union website. And you can see that it's very functional. And the question I ask here is, who are you appealing to? And pretty much they're appealing to the current members. And just having things about how they can take advantage of the services. But a different one is Digital Credit Union, DCU, which I understand is a large, one of the largest credit unions in the country, and is really good at marketing. You could do worse probably than have the VP of marketing from DCU talk to you sometime, because I'm going to come back to them a few times because they're so good at this. And a great example is right on their website, where they're talking about a car loan or refinancing. And in the small print, they say we'll help you save with rates as low as 1.49% APR. But the big message is the emotional one. Here's this woman who presumably has bought her new car, and she's saved money and she's having a good time. And she has more to spend on life's adventures. So they put it in a, an emotional, appealing way, and not just get a low APR with us. And they do this over and over again very well. Now, since we're talking about websites and conversions, a new conversion tool these days that has really popped up in the last 5 or 6 years, so to speak, are these chat tools. And this is one example of the kind of conversion tool, very easy to add to a website, and can be a huge improvement in the customer experience and the opportunity to, as soon as someone is starting to look for something, helping them out and interacting with them, rather than them being frustrated for 5 or 10 minutes or not finding it all and not becoming a member and going to a website that is more helpful. So taking advantage of this kind of chat can be, there's a lot of things which are like, they help by 3%, they help by 5%. You add them up and you're getting 20%, 30% and more improvements. This is a conversion page, a landing page for software. And this is a kind of page which, of course, you might have on your website to sign up for something or to talk to a rep or to download something. And just the design of these, just the colors, the words, the layout can have a significant impact in how many people fill it out. Because the reality is that even people who click on an ad and come to our website, typically only a few percent fill them out. A really depressingly low percentage. If you optimize these landing pages, you can as much as double that. So just by having a better design and layout, you're doubling the number of leads or conversions that you're getting, which means that each one costs you half of what they would cost otherwise. Probably the best that I've ever done is a 33% conversion rate, which is very, very high. And it was because we had an outstanding offer. And so the way that you can best, assuming you're marketing to the right people and you have a good layout, the offer is the thing that can juice your results the most. And that, again, comes from understanding your customers, understanding your members, and what you can provide them that would most entice them and service them. So it's really critical to optimize your conversion experience very early on in this whole marketing process. If you're not, it's like you're trying to fill a bucket that's full of holes. You're just wasting quite a lot of your effort. All right, the next tool that many of you have is email marketing. So let me ask you to put into chat now how many emails do you have on your list roughly, and how often do you email them? So if people could share that. How many emails you have on your list total, and how often typically you email them, if you know this. 19,000 and not often enough. Oh, you're getting ahead of me, Nikki. But I will get to that in about 2 minutes. Anyone else want to share? Not sure, weekly. Okay. 6,000 monthly, 2,000-ish about twice a week. Well, that's a great cadence. Oops, twice a month. maybe not quite as good. All right. So when I start to work with companies all the time, this is typical. You're actually ahead of many companies I work with, because when I start to work with them, I'll say, how many emails do you have? And they'll say, we have 5,000, we have 15,000, we have 30,000. How often do you email them? Oh, around the holidays. Email marketing, McKinsey, the consulting group, says that email marketing is 40 times more effective for lead generation than social media. And that's been my experience over and over again. And in this case, for social media, we're talking about free posts. We're not talking about social media ads, which I'll get to in a little bit, which can be very effective. But email marketing, which costs almost nothing. Again, this is one of those tools where you've got the list, you've got the asset, it costs almost nothing to send it out, and it's very, very effective. Many e-commerce companies know that it's so effective that the first time a person visits, they'll interrupt their shopping experience and give them some offer just to get their email, because they know that 98% of them are not going to buy anything on the first visit. But if they can get their email, the lifetime value of that person will be 4 to 5 times higher, because they can start to market to them. So I'm not suggesting you send out spam. But let me ask you, a couple of you kind of alluded to this, and we started to talk about in chat. Why don't you say, how often do you think ideally you should be emailing people? Daily, weekly, monthly, or quarterly? Okay, 2x a month, weekly, once a week, weekly, bi-weekly. Okay. These are great answers. And I would tend to agree with those weekly people. You can look here that Dockers sends out emails pretty much every day, which used to be more common with e-commerce companies. Union Bay, a competitor of theirs, tends to be more like once every week or so, not daily. But certainly you wouldn't be sending yours out daily. But what I often say to clients is more than you're comfortable with. And that weekly cadence is probably a good goal to have. And if right now you're nowhere near that, you may have to start with monthly or twice a month and then grow over 6 months or so to get it up to weekly. But it is tremendously effective and something you should be using all the time. And you can use that email list on social media to target the same people. You can upload your email list to Facebook, to LinkedIn, to Twitter, to other social media sites, Instagram, and then target your messages to those same people. So they start to see you in 2 or 3 places now, through email, through social media ads, when they come to your website. And after they come to your website, through remarketing ads. And remarketing ads are those ads where someone has come to a website, and when they leave that site, they immediately start to see messages from the company that they just visited. Like they looked at something on Amazon, and as soon as they leave Amazon, they see ads for that specific item. Because you can tailor remarketing to what on your website they were looking to do. Were they looking to join? Were they looking to get an auto loan? Were they looking for a mortgage or business banking? And it's highly effective because it's only targeted to people who have come to your website very recently. They know you, they may be in research mode for that particular service. And it's very, so that makes it very effective, and it's also very inexpensive.
Louis, we have a couple questions. They all kind of echo the same sentiment as to the frequency. How much is too much without becoming spam or background noise, or just even becoming annoying clutter in your inbox? Is there a guiding principle on the daily or twice a week Is there a good rule of thumb that we should consider if we're trying to expand how much we're contacting our email lists?
Well, you might, you can track and see if you're starting to hit a point where you're getting a higher unsubscribe rate. That's going to be different for every company. Like I showed you, 2 companies that are in the exact same business have very different frequencies. And daily is certainly much less common than it was 5 years ago. Weekly probably is not going to cause a problem. And you can be tracking your unsubscribes to see when you start to run into resistance. I was giving a talk like this to another group, and a woman said, "Oh, this wouldn't work with me. I get emails from this one fashion site that I like. I get them every day and I just ignore them. And then when I want to buy something, I go through the last 30 days of their emails and I find what's on sale and then I buy it." And I was like, okay, I think that worked. Every day they get 2 seconds of your time, or every time you get an email, they get 2 seconds of your time. They're building up mental availability. And when you're ready to buy, you buy from them. So I'll take that level of annoyance anytime. All right, one more existing marketing asset and in phase 1 that we'll talk about, and that is sales and marketing collaboration. So you have marketing people, you have sales people, and especially on the B2B side, you need to have them working together. Working on that, there's a number of steps to doing that. I'm only going to briefly mention 2. One is to help sales be first responders. It's well known that if someone is reaching out to, say, 3 companies or 5 companies for the same thing, the one that responds first gets the business probably 50% or more of the time. And so if someone contacts you through your website or otherwise, and I'm not talking about, just signing up for some event or making a casual contact, but someone who says, I'm interested in this service, I'm interested in this now, you should be responding to them in minutes, not hours, not the next day, in minutes. And you need to set up the process to be able to do that and to get that over to sales so they can be that responsive. And a lot of the marketing that we talk about is what you might consider fishing with a net. You're out there with your search ads, or you're out there with your other types of ads or emails, and you're trying to reel in a lot of different prospects. But another opportunity in the B2B side is targeted account programs, which is more like spear fishing, where you say, here are the 25 businesses we would like to get working with us. And sales and marketing are going to work together on researching them, figuring out what their problems are, figuring out who we need to contact, creating the outreach materials, the marketing materials, and so forth, to have an effective program to reach out to them, to try to get them as a new customer. All right, so those are some of the top marketing assets that you have. And very little of what I just described for the last 15 minutes would cost you much at all to do. It would certainly take some effort, but from a dollar point of view, it wouldn't cost you a whole lot. And some of those things can have dramatic impact on your results, as I was saying, in just a few months. All right, so let's look at phase 2 now. And phase 2 is selling to those customers who are in market right now, that 2% or so that really does want to switch financial institutions or is looking for a new loan or whatever it may be. So there's 3 ways that you might categorize consumers. And one is with demographics. And demographics is, of course, things like age, gender, race, income, location, perhaps for you, where they're working, and so forth. And while we think of demographics as important, it's not always real important. This is a example. I did not come up with this, but here are two men who are both male, white, born in 1948 in the UK, married twice. Both are wealthy and famous and live in a castle, and one is Prince Charles, and the other is Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, the lead singer of Black Sabbath. So very different, even though demographically they're pretty similar. So demographics doesn't always take you real far, but these two do illustrate psychographics, the emotional makeup of people. And as I was saying at the beginning, we make decisions emotionally. People aren't all looking for the same thing. And so understanding the difference, the psychographics of the people that you're appealing to and the different segments, psychographic segments, can be very important. But even if you know a good match demographically and psychographically, it's not as important in the short run if they don't intend to do something real soon. And this is that 2% of people who are actively looking for what you provide right now. And when you combine these three together, demographics, psychographics, and intent, then you're cooking with gas. Then you got a real good possibility there. Now, one of the ways that people express intent, how do you find those people who are looking? Many people start by searching on Google. So here I've done a search on Maine credit unions. And of course, these are the organic listings. And it's very important to get high using search engine optimization in the organic listings, because over 50% of clicks will go to just the top 3 links on page 1 of the Google search results. But what I didn't find when I did this search were any ads, which usually go at the top. Now, there's 2 possible reasons for this. One is you're being very shrewd and you're not showing your ads and wasting your money to someone in Massachusetts. And so you're running ads, but they're only running in the geographic area that you serve, and that's why I wouldn't see them. Or you're not running ads, and you should be. And for a credit union, there might be 100 or more keywords that could be effective for you, keyword phrases that could help get you in front of people who are searching right now, either for a new financial institution or for particular instruments and services that you could provide them. Another way that you can identify intent is how people engage with your content. So using technology like marketing automation programs and others, you can see who are the people who are most, who are visiting your website more than they used to. Usually this has to do with a change in behavior. If there's someone who's been visiting your website once a week for the last 5 years, and they're still visiting once a week, that may not show anything. But if they start visiting once a day, it's that change, that greater frequency, that's the signal. You're looking for that surge of activity. Same thing from a company, instead of, suddenly do you see 3 people from a company looking at your website. And these are the things that sales should be made aware of because these are opportunities. These are expressions of intent that may be important for landing new business. Okay, so then the third phase of Bullseye marketing, which is to cast a wider net, which is building a brand. This is getting in front of the 98% who aren't buying today, but they will be in 3 or 6 or 12 months or 2 years or 5 years. And many people, the majority of people, and companies only look at one and maybe two vendors when they're ready to buy. They don't do a rational search with a spreadsheet and columns of 10 different financial institutions. And so you want to be top of mind at the time when they do. Now, this is from a study that was done in the UK of 1,000 award-winning campaigns that are both direct response and brand campaigns. And so the interaction between direct response and brand is very important. In this case, the direct response campaigns are represented by the yellow jaggies, and you can see that they have a quick, significant impact, but they also degrade and are forgotten very quickly. If the person doesn't act on it, they don't think about that ad or that communication 10 minutes later. The purple staircase are the brand messages. These have a small impact, but they're emotion-based rather than rational. And they stick with you because they're emotion-based, and they grow over time. And over the course of 2 or 3 years, they have a greater impact on you than do those direct response campaigns. And that's where you build that mental availability, and people remember you and think of you when they're ready to look for something new. Roughly, you want a 50-50 split between direct response and brand. Now, again, if you don't have a very robust marketing program, initially you might weight it more heavily at direct response to show you can get results and to show you can produce value, because waiting 2 years for the brand to build, you have to have some commitment, certainly from senior management for that. But in the long run, companies and this is a short talk, so I'm not diving into that, but it's been shown over and over again. And you have all sorts of companies that said, oh, we're going to stop the brand advertising. We're just going to, we can quantify the direct response stuff. It's digital, it's easy to measure. And after 2 or 3 years, they come back to brand and say, that was a big mistake. We need them both. Again, as I was saying, it's because you only know about a small percentage of the opportunities that are out there, and you've got to build your brand with the rest of the market all the time. Now, organic social media is not, unfortunately, the way to do it, because organic social media, the unpaid posts, is hardly by a brand are hardly seen by anyone. About 9 years ago, 8 or 9 years ago, Facebook, LinkedIn, the other social media sites started to greatly reduce the exposure of unpaid brand posts. Now, less than 2% of followers even see a post from a brand. So if you have 1,000 followers on Facebook, less than 20 of them see your posts. Because the social media site said, people aren't interested in the posts from brands, on Facebook. They want to see their friends and families and newborns and so forth. And B, on every other platform, companies pay to get exposure, so we're going to make them pay for ads. And the ads are very effective. So the first thing you have to do is decide, where are your customers? They're probably on Facebook, on Instagram. For business, they may be on LinkedIn. They may be on some other sites. And then, consider doing social media ads, because they can be so well targeted. You can use your email to do it, and you can use other tools I'll talk about in a moment to target it very well. This is from a book publisher. You can see they have a great offer. I was saying before how important the offer is. This is from another social media site that many of you may belong to, Nextdoor, and they're advertising for advertisers. They're looking for other people to advertise there. One of the one service you can use is a company. You can go to pearmill.com, pear like the fruit, and sign up, and they send out these regular examples of some great social media ads. And they usually involve animation, like this one for this bank. And this one for trousers. So if you're looking for some ideas, paramill.com is a nice little way to see what other companies are doing in social media. As I was saying, you can target using demographics like age, location, gender, and even interests. So if you find some common interests among your people, you can use that. Now, this is an example of a 6-second social media ad from DCU, that credit union I mentioned before. And you want to keep your ads probably on social media to 30 seconds or less, but this one's very nice. And again, it has just a nice little emotional twist, not just a rational message. So it doesn't say, that it's just a mortgage. It says it helps you find a place to call home. And this is the 30-second version of it.
It was the little red door that did it. Something about it just said home. Not one door among a dozen like at my old apartment, but my own door. A door that leads to a yard where my dog can play, and a mailbox that says my name. For the very first time in my life, my mortgage from DCU means a place to call my own. What will DCU mean to you?
So a nice emotional message there. All right, other types of content you might create. It may be infographics, it may be white papers, it can come in many forms, it may be blog posts. But customers want to hear from other customers. They want to hear from customers more than they want to hear from you, and put the customer in the center of a story. A big mistake that many companies make is they talk about themselves. And instead of saying, we did this, say, our customer did this, and we were happy to help them do that by providing X, Y, and Z. And if you can find something that's really important to your customer that not everybody else is talking about, that is really great content. Videos, more and more content is consumed online by video all the time. So producing videos is important. DCU has dozens of them. Some have, thousands of views, some fewer. Here are a dozen different videos you might think of: a company profile, product overviews, customer success interviews, chalk talks like this guy on the right is doing, training, events, etc. A lot of opportunities with videos, and you've got a camera in your pocket. You've got a phone that can produce professional quality video. So these don't have to cost a lot. That 6-second video of the woman sitting on her doorstep, that didn't have to cost a lot of money. This is one more 30-second from DCU. Could be done on cable, could be on the internet.
It's the small things, like knowing the engine will start when you're running late, or the AC will work when the windows don't. Before we built up our credit, we couldn't get a loan for a reliable car. So we learned to expect the unexpected. But after a little planning and a low rate from DCU, now we've got a car we can depend on, which feels like a pretty big thing. What will DCU mean to you?
All right, just a couple more things to mention quickly. Be creative. This is something, I have friends in Newport, Rhode Island, and on the beach there's a dermatologist who has this sunscreen station right as you enter the beach. So this is what people think about. I don't want to get sunburned. They've put it at the perfect spot, and time after time as you come onto that beach during the summer, if you're looking for a dermatologist, you're going to be reminded of it. And take on Goliath. As a credit union, you're probably more of a David than Goliath. And you're probably, people identify with David. And sometimes in marketing and in business, you're very explicit about the Goliath that you're taking on. So think about how you might, explicitly take on Goliath. So in the long run, you need to do all of them. You need to build an integrated omni-channel program that people will be seeing you in 6 to 10 different channels, 6 to 10 different marketing channels, to build up that mental availability, to come to you when they're ready for your services, ready to switch financial institutions, and that for that, you're top of mind. And the one thing, that's central to being effective and being successful is consistency, because it's easy to create the strategy, it's easy to create the plans, but you've got to execute on this day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. That's how you're successful. And that's how you get results. All right. So thank you for sticking here through this whole presentation. So what questions do people have? Anything, questions or follow-ups or comments that you want to make? We can unmute someone if we want to. We have that technology.
Yes, Nikki, let's see. We'll get you. Jake, can you unmute? There you go. Hi, Nikki.
Hi. So, great presentation. I loved some of the examples and everything. I'm just wondering, a lot of us are small. Maybe we're a department of one. Maybe we have limited resources. So, Louis, would you say start with the center of the bullseye and then work your way outwards if you had to focus on, what you're able to do?
Good question.
That's exactly what you do. You start in the center to lay the foundation and get the quick, inexpensive results. And then you build out to the second phase. And then maybe 6 months or a year down the road, you get to the third phase. As I was showing with that graphic with the step ladder in it for the brand, that's where, that's why companies like Progressive and Geico advertise constantly to get that brand impact. But if you can't start there, you start in the center and you work out your way out. But don't stop in the center.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure. And, I work with startups, some who have very little money, and I've worked with many nonprofits. And even in my Fortune 10 customers, everybody has budgets. They will also say, we can't do that. We don't have the budget for that. So, everybody has a budget and everybody has limits, and you just have to be creative within them. Other questions?
Other questions. That was a good one.
Yeah.
Also
ahead,
monitoring the chat. Oh, Karen, you have a question.
I do. Can you give us an example of taking on Goliath?
Yeah. Well, when I'm talking to a tech audience, I don't know if you're familiar with Salesforce. So Salesforce is a customer relationship management system, CRM. And now they're like a $20 billion revenue company. But in 1999 or 2000, when they were just a little startup, they weren't. And Goliath to them, and they were one of the first SaaS companies. So SaaS is software as a service. When, now we're used to this. Like all of our software is software as a service. We all do it through a browser, but Salesforce was one of the very first companies. And they said to companies, you should put your most valuable information, your customer list with this little startup, and really we'll take care of it for you. And I thought, boy, that's quite a claim. But what they were doing was they were going up against the big CRM companies, which were installing software on premise. And so the Salesforce campaign was, a red circle with a slash that said no software. And they had to sell, and they, there's a book by the founder, Mark Benioff, called Behind the Cloud. If you read like the first third, you hear all these, he talks about all the guerrilla marketing they did in the early days. Like they would picket the user conference of their biggest competitor with these no software picket signs. And, you know, they would get a lot of trade PR from that. So they were very in your face about it. And, you know, you guys are probably up against the Bank of Americas and whatever the big banks are in Maine. And so you may not want to picket them, but you may think of other ways of explicitly saying, we're not the big bank. You know, you see this in even local bank ads around here, not credit unions, but, you know, where they're like, hey, we're your neighborhood bank. We're the ones who are your neighbors. We're the ones who care about you. We're not, you know, the $1 trillion bank. So, you know, think about that approach.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions or comments?
Any other questions? We've got probably time for one more. If anybody has a question, or you can put it through to the chat. Josh.
My question is related to the emotional connection of the advertising and branding. You know, as far as like what's the balance that you would recommend? Because sometimes I in my mind I see the emotional connection, but I quickly forget the brand.
Yeah, well, that's a really great point, Josh, because one of the biggest mistakes that you can make in any of your advertising is to not really brand it strongly. And sometimes people are, and companies are shy, and marketers are shy or almost ashamed of, like, you know, branding their own ads. And it's like, you got to make it really explicit who this ad is for. And I see this on billboards all the time, which again is something you could use locally. And you see these billboards and it's like, okay, but who was that for? I'm not going to remember who that was for. For example, there have been studies that show that if you, on an online ad or an online video, if you put your logo at the beginning, people think, oh, no one's going to watch it because they're going to say that's an ad. It makes no difference in the viewer rate. So you can put your logo at the beginning for a second or two, and you can put your logo at the end. And, you know, in this other talk I give, where I talk in much more depth about the brand stuff, there's a Tide ad from the Super Bowl from about 4 years ago, which is just, they mentioned Tide probably 12 times in the ad, and it's not offensive at all. It's done very humorously and very creatively. So you absolutely have got to make sure you brand your ads well, so that at the end, people know who they were from.
Thanks, Josh. Last, any other additional questions? I know we're coming up right up on 1. Checking the chat. All right. I think we've got it covered. What an amazing session. I love the examples that you gave. I want to thank you for going the extra step and personalizing it, including credit unions, because it makes it that much more real for all of us. So I want to thank you for doing that. It was incredibly valuable to me, and I'm sure it will be valuable to others as well. So thank you very much for your time. To the members of the Marketing Council, thank you for your lunch hour with us. And if you have any questions, this session was recorded, so I will get this posted on the League's website in case you want to go back and rewatch things. I know I like to do that sometimes and mirror up my notes. So I will send out an email to everyone once that's up so that you know it's there. And again, to our fabulous speaker, thank you very much for your time and your talent. And I look forward to seeing the rest of you, hopefully next month. So thank you all.